So Simeon and I will be jointly presenting this session today. We want to talk a bit about how you can engage with the Mojaloop Foundation. And while part of our engagement, of course, is the very important work of the developer community, there's other ways to engage as well. Okay, so sorry for that hiccup, folks. But again, I wanted to start with an introduction about who the Mojaloop Foundation is, so you can get some context of how we operate and how you can collaborate with us. The Mojaloop Foundation is a 501c3 charitable organization. That is a tax status that allows us to operate as a charity, allows us to accept grants. But it also has an obligation that we maintain our open source software as a public good in service of financial inclusion. So we do not sell anything. What we do is invest in the ongoing development and operations of the Mojaloop Foundation and the project. And the market can use that software freely in our hopes to address financial inclusion. When we launched the foundation last year, our focus has been on expanding the work that the Mojaloop project initiated in Africa about 4 years ago, and expanding our engagement where there's the greatest opportunity to directly affect financial inclusion through interoperable payments. We, as many of you that have been familiar with the project in early years, you know that our focus has been Africa, but we really want to address financial inclusion wherever there are developing countries that would like to serve the unbanked and underserved. We've been engaging with digital financial service providers, regulators, NGOs, and government offices looking to address the critical challenges faced by local underserved communities. And the way that we do that is we focus on a number of key areas. First of all, requirements. We need to capture market requirements to continue to drive the product strategy and roadmap. Leslie Ann Vaughn is our Director of Product Strategy, and she works very closely with the Product Council in capturing those requirements and providing that feedback back to the developer community about the priorities for the product. Of course, the development community is focused on the code base, enhancing it, testing it, documenting it, and maintaining the open source project. We also need to do advocacy work. We need to educate the market, increase awareness and consideration for the Mojaloop platform. We need to provide training to our community. Hopefully, some of you are already aware of the robust training program that we launched early this year. There are a number of modules that are very useful if you want to get to know more about how the Mojaloop platform operates. We're very keenly interested in deployments. That's where the ecosystem, that's where you come into play. It's important for us to engage with folks across the ecosystem to make sure that you have the information and the understanding of how to sell, deploy, and operate Mojaloop. Again, because that's not a function that we provide. That's something that we really depend on the members of the ecosystem to provide. And operations, we need to make sure that there's folks out there that know how to operate Mojaloop deployments. Again, an opportunity for members of the ecosystem to provide those services to central banks and digital financial service providers that are looking for that technical support in maintaining their environment. Next slide. So the way that we are organized as an organization is that we have a board of directors. The board of directors is seated through membership in the organization. So in addition to the directors, we have a treasurer and a secretary. We also have a technical governing board that oversees our strategic roadmap and ensures that our development work adheres to the mission of the foundation. The technical governing board is chaired by Miller Abel of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they engage with the Design Authority and the Change Control Board, both which is driven by community members. So they're voluntary positions in those two organizational teams. There's a chair of both the Design Authority and Change Control Board, and they provide feedback back to the Technical Governing Board about design decisions and changes to our specifications. We also have staff to keep the operations running, to pay the bills, to provide marketing and public relations services. We have other volunteer organizations such as the Marketing Steering Group that provides input to our marketing team about what's important for sales tools, awareness, other activities that we should participate in, whether it be events or speaking engagements. We have a community council, which Simeon works with to advise us on what's important for the community as far as onboarding and governance. And as I mentioned, Leslie Ann Vaughn has a product council, again, volunteer participants from the community advising her on the requirements of the product. So it takes a collection of people to operate the Mojaloop Foundation, but it also takes members and community members to round out our thinking and to help steer us down the path towards financial inclusion. Next slide. So why did the Mojaloop project form as an open source initiative? I think what you probably heard from Costa's presentation is that there are a number of factors that contributed to this thinking. There's gaps that existed that contributed to the lack of financial inclusion, gaps in services, gaps in accessibility. And it appeared that a number of commercial entities did not seem interested in reaching the unbanked and underserved. They might have felt it was too challenging or expensive to get to that last mile. And so cost restraints and some of the legacy systems that were already in place in the financial sector were barriers to reaching those underserved and delivering financial services to them. So an open source model seemed to be a new and viable approach, a way to disrupt the historical way of thinking and the historical way of delivering financial services out to the masses. And we hope that it provides some unique benefits that you'll all agree are of use to your business as well. Next slide. So why did we choose open source? Faced with very large, complex financial systems out there, why did we take this different approach to developing the Mojaloop platform? Well, first of all, there's a lower capital cost up front. Since the open source software itself is free, no licensing fees, it's easy for someone to test the waters, create a sandbox, play with the code a bit, before they actually leap in and do a full deployment. And even when they do that full deployment, those licensing fees do not exist. So the lower upfront cost is very important. It's also lower, there's a lower cost to maintain the software because there's a shared effort across many organizations. Imagine central banks and digital financial service providers, software developers, and other service providers all collectively talking about the challenges and the future roadmap and working on that code base together. Again, that lowers the costs. You don't have to pay a software company to maintain the code base. There's also lower cost to acquire additional functionality. If a central bank comes to us and says, we want you to address this particular feature set or this functionality, it's likely that there's other players that are interested in that as well. So we can go back to the community and say, we have critical mass within the marketplace looking for these features and functions. Let's solve this collectively. And again, that's not something that gets billed back to the consumer of the software. The community contributes that freely. It also minimizes vendor lock-in. So once an entity has decided to deploy Mojaloop, there's obviously technical resources to maintain and operate the code base. but then the entity is not beholden to one particular service provider. They can switch at any time because they're not locked in with licensing and maintenance contracts. Next slide. So how do we do it? How do we implement this open source development model? Well, we use a community-driven process. We've adopted an agile model. We reiterate very rapidly on the code base. You see the process there on the right-hand side of my slide. We build, configure, test, release, design, and it's a virtuous circle. The development follows a continuous improvement cycle, which exposes flaws faster and reduces wasteful time spent on things that may or may not work. Value is achieved faster as releases arrive to the customer more frequently. We have shorter development cycles, wider market windows, and continuous improvement. And so every year we kick off a new phase of development. This year we started phase 5. We have 4 community meetings a year. Our next one is late October. And during those community meetings, we evaluate the progress on prior work. We establish priorities for the next increment. Community determines what work streams will be the priority for the next program increment. And it's a very open process. It's inclusive of developers, implementers, customers. Anyone is welcome to our community meetings. And if you are interested, we will be happy to register you for the October event once registration opens. Come for the whole week, come for a few sessions. But again, it's an open process. Next slide. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our member organizations. As I mentioned earlier in my slides, we have a board of directors, we have a technical governing board. Those 2 boards are populated by our members listed on the slide here. And members are an important factor in how we operate as a nonprofit foundation. We need external governance to ensure that we remain focused on our mission. We need the technical governance oversight to ensure that the product roadmap doesn't waver from our mission. But we also need a financial support. So all of these individual companies here that you see listed on the slide have paid membership dues to help support our operation and staff. So we thank them for that contribution and we welcome others. Next slide. So if you're interested in joining the membership of the Mojaloop Foundation, right on our public website, there's a join button and you can fill out a form and get more feedback from us once you fill out that form. But at a high level, I just wanted to share the structure. We have 2 tiers of membership, a sponsor level and a promoter member. The sponsor level has an annual fee of $200,000. The promoter level is based on company revenue and ranges from $10,000 to $100,000 per year. And then the rights associated with those membership structures include at the sponsor level being able to have a seat on the board of directors. So we have annual elections and folks in the sponsor class are able to participate in the board activities. I will note that our initial founding sponsors have permanent board seats as long as they remain members in good standing, but that still leaves additional seats open for the pool of remaining members. At the promoter level, it's an open entry. There's unlimited memberships of that class, and it allows you to nominate a voting representative to the technical governing board. Again, a very important function to ensure that we look at the long-range strategic roadmap and ensure that our development is on track to adhering to our mission. Next slide. So I'm going to pause now. I don't see any questions in the queue at this point in time, unless, Simeon, you've seen any?
No questions in the chat either.
Okay, great.
Quickly.
So I'll thank you for your comments. I note that folks like the open source slide, and some folks have partaken of our training. So again, that to get to the training, you can go to our public website. It's very easy to find. So I encourage all of you to participate in that. But now I'll pass it on to Simeon.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Paula. One of the hallmarks of any open source organization is at the core of it is a community. And I think one of the unique pieces about the Mojaloop community is that it's a mesh of a couple of different groups of people, individuals, and organizations. And the main role of the community here is we work with an ecosystem to create solutions that facilitate deployment, customization, extension of software. And this is accomplished by different organizations, consultants, and other groups, which are summarized here. We have in the ecosystem a subset of organizations and individuals who are focused on providing services to adopters that help them customize or develop the platform. And from an analysis of the community, these 5 groups largely stand out. And I'll spend a minute walking through each of these. And as I go through this, it might help if you, in reflection, try and categorize yourself in one of these buckets. The first group is consultants. These are individuals or organizations who provide analysis, architecture, and advisory support to enable adopters to make the best possible choices. We've got system integrators who provide leadership or support for deployment, implementation, management, extension, customization, while making use of enterprise-grade communications and workflows. There's a technical solution provider who enable adopters and testers to get started quickly and easily with things like test environments, testing toolkits, APIs, and pre-integrated solutions. Training organizations who provide standard or tailored training and guidance for adopters to build the skills needed for deployments and daily operations. And of course, the operation support or BizOps. These are organizations that provide expertise and best practice guidance or allocate resource capacity for operational support. In looking at this subset or this categorization of our community members, we wanted to take the step to feature these organizations front and center so that any adopter, anyone who's looking to work with Mojaloop can easily identify the relevant contacts whom they can engage for their needs. And this is why today we're very excited to announce the Mojaloop business directory. And I'll walk you through which the purpose of the Mojaloop business directory is essentially to put front and center you people, the members in our community and the organizations in our community who work together to build a strong ecosystem around Mojaloop. We have expectations of these organizations. What you can expect is the people you'll find on the Mojaloop business directory are organizations who proactively advocate for Mojaloop with a view to increasing its adoption. These organizations focus on the customer, and they deliver excellent solutions that deliver true value to the customer. These organizations are also very knowledgeable about Mojaloop, and they constantly evolve with the market. And they often attend events. You'll see many of them in the chat column there, and connect with other players in the ecosystem with the intention to build improved and new solutions. And because level 1 principles is also at the heart of Mojaloop, all these organizations are conversant with the level 1 principles. When we talk about the business directory as well, it's not a thing that you can just list your organization and up and it's there. We take time to vet all the applications or all the listings there so that we can provide a high quality resource. And we vet them across two things. One is a business alignment, which focuses on 3 things. We look at what is this organization's customer base. and their ability to produce results in terms of what their reach and capacity is. And we also choose to focus on their mission alignment. Are they focused on financial inclusion as we are at the foundation? The other thing is we also consider adoption success factors. The organizations that you see listed in the business directory, what is their willingness to engage or their level of interest? And we can gauge that by looking at their participation in community meetings such as this one, how actively they're taking training programs and engaging in advocacy for Mojaloop. That's one of the things that we look at. We also look at their ability to manage proof of concepts. And also their technical proficiency. You can be sure that everybody on the Mojaloop business directory has a very good level of fluency in Mojaloop and related technologies. One of the things that this is what the new business directory will look like, and it is up on the website. We'll be happy to send you a link as soon as it goes live. There is a way that you can sign up. So that your business or your organization can be listed in the new Mojaloop business directory. And this is the process for registration. Essentially, go through the aforementioned criteria, they're listed on the website. I will put in the link to this in the chat. And the link is right there actually on your screen, mojaloop.io/mojaloop-business-directory. If you go to that link, you will be able to sign up and register your organization to be listed in the Mojaloop business directory. And by doing so, you will be playing a huge role in building out and supporting and growing an ecosystem around Mojaloop. It's important for me to highlight that this is one of the tools among many others in development and coming soon that we are using actively to spotlight organizations in the Mojaloop community and in the Mojaloop ecosystem who can actively support adopters in their pursuit to use Mojaloop. If you're still not sure if this is a tool for you or how you want to get engaged, please join us in the networking break session where we'll be happy to answer those questions. Or you can reach out to myself or Paula and we can have a one-on-one discussion to see how best your organization can participate in the Mojaloop ecosystem. So the link is in the chat, mojaloop.io/Mojaloop business directory. All the information in the previous slides are there, and we hope that you can soon participate in the ecosystem. And so our rallying call here is we ask you to join us. There are very many ways to engage with us. Join us by adopting Mojaloop. Join us by contributing to it. And later on in the day, you'll hear from organizations that have and are actively contributing to Mojaloop in the community. And you can join as members in the way that Paula has described. I'll pass it back to you, Paula.
Thank you, Simeon. Hopefully you can hear me now. So as Simeon mentioned, we'd really like to see folks fill out the form in the business directory. We get a lot of questions from the marketplace about who is fluent in Mojaloop, who can help me design and set up a Mojaloop instance, who can help me deploy it. So people are looking for support and counsel across the spectrum of deployment. And recognizing that there are companies out there who are skilled in providing these types of services. So we'd like to let the folks in the marketplace know that you exist. So it's a form that you fill out yourself. We give you the freedom to describe yourself as you see fit. And I did want to give a shout out to Cybrin and Glenbrook Partners. They're our first registrants to the business directory. So now that we have a couple on board, we've been testing it out in the last few days. we'll be going live with the directory in the next day or so. So this will be open and live for the foreseeable future. So we encourage you to go ahead and fill out your forms. But again, thanks to Cybrin and Glenbrook for being our inaugural registrants. So again, if you have any questions, we're just about ready to go into a breakout session now. So Simeon, I'm going to stop your share